Sean. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Swamini. Thank you for inviting me onto your show.
Thank you so much for joining. I know we have known each other for like 3 years now, so I'm really excited to just learn the concepts of copywriting and the scope that we have today. So thank you so much for joining.
You're very welcome.
Firstly, can you please tell our audience like a little bit about your background?
Absolutely, yes. So a disclaimer for your audience, I suppose, is that yes, we have worked together, but we met very infrequently, didn't we? Because I'm largely remote, and that's what my business is based on, is being remote. Long before COVID happened, I was working from home or visiting clients briefly. And the life of a copywriter is a lonely life, but we get a lot of stuff done because we generally work from home or from coffee shops or libraries, and it's rather nice. Was I always like that? No, I guess my career started, well, I left school early. I was a late starter at university. So I went as a mature student, around about 23 years old, I think. So possibly, is that 5 years later than people usually do it? I guess so. And then I worked as a freelance writer after university and in retail as well. And then I got a job as an agency copywriter for a very good agency in Bristol. Sadly, that was around the time of the towers being hit in New York. So business plummeted. People stopped spending money. Rightly so. There were other things going on in the world back then. But it meant the agency had to make a lot of redundancies. So I went back to working in magazines, in print. Well, I saw things going online, Swamini. So I left the print side of the world and I started going online, and I became an editor of a website for food and drink trade industry. And then I was a senior copywriter at Backbase a few years ago. And then I started my own business. That's a potted history.
Yeah. So what led you to full-time freelancing? Why did you decide to do so?
Well, I think itchy feet is the short answer, is always wanting to work with total control of what the work was, how I approached the work, and the people I worked with. I wanted as much control over that as possible. And the logical path would be to do that yourself, to start your own business and go for it. And I think that's pretty much how it happened. I think Backbase, working for Backbase in Amsterdam at the time, was a big influence on that, because the guy who ran Backbase was very keen on hiring entrepreneurial types, because he wanted to have a business full of people who had their own initiative, could approach tasks and projects thinking for themselves, and then develop teams around them and have that entrepreneurial bent, that point of view. And I guess that inspired me to take that extra leap. A lot of people left Backbase to start their own businesses, which I actually think is a really good business model.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about the prospecting? Because I know like many people who want to get into like freelance work, they don't know where to find clients. So
that's the hard bit.
Yeah. So what's your prospecting method? Like, what was it initially and how do you approach it now?
I'd like to say I know that I have the secret sauce or something like that. I don't. I'm actually I'm still finding my feet with finding prospects. Even this many years on, I think I've been running the business for probably 5 years now. And it's hard. I'm not a natural. I do find that most of the work I get is from word of mouth. It's from knowing people. It's from doing good work for good people. And then those good people passing your information on to someone else. It really is as simple as that. Finding prospects, it's difficult for me, but thankfully, I've done good work, and that has been passed on. So word of mouth has led me down this path so far. When that dries up, I'm in trouble. I need to get on the prospecting. But I'm not going to say it's an easy thing at all. You do have to put the work in, brand as much as possible, write as much as possible, know your value, and do good work. Do hard work, do good work.
Yeah, that's good advice. And what about your onboarding process? Because I know when you're working with people remotely, you don't know the client personally, trust and everything. How do you build that up?
Yeah, I think this is something else that you learn over time. I can't say I was the best at doing this when I first started my own business. You learn over time, you pick up new tricks along the way from the people that you meet and the people that you network with and other freelancers who tell you a bit more about contract law. And then contract law changes all the time. So you have to stay up to date with best practice, but also etiquette, professional etiquette, how you talk to people. What is the order of things you should do? Do you have a chat first? Do you have a contract first? Do you agree the project details first? All of those things, they kind of develop over time. Is there a right and a wrong way? I'm sure there probably is. I found a way that works for me at the moment, and that is having an initial chat, usually over video, face-to-face, as we're doing now, and cover a brief as much as possible. Find out as much about that business as possible, what they want to achieve, what their budgets are, what their scope is. Do they want to appeal to the customers they have, or do they want completely new customers? Find out, really dig into the details on that very first call, if possible. Save the client time, because the next step in that process of onboarding is to actually tell them about you. Send them, well, here's what I do, here's how much it's going to cost, here's how long it's going to take, etc., etc. So get all that stuff up front first, and then you have more freedom to then lay out your carpet, so to speak, and to let them see what the process is going to look like from your point of view.
Yeah. I think another pain point is around sustaining your clients, your existing clients, rather than just like prospecting new ones, but sustaining is also a problem. So what tips do you have for freelancers when it comes to sustaining your clients?
Well, I'm going to steal from something I said a few minutes ago, which was work hard and do good work. It's the best sustainability I can think of for staying with people and working with clients. You build that trust by doing good work and having an open relationship enough that when things aren't going so well, or the direction you're working in isn't quite as good as it used to be, they tell you. Your client comes to you and says, hey, your work isn't as good. I haven't had this yet. Thankfully, I haven't had this yet. But develop that relationship where you can have open communication with your client and build that trust, and just really work hard at it. But also put in the work in knowing what they want, because a client's targets change all the time. The business changes all the time. So go with them, swim in that same pool with each client that you're working with. Don't be the consistent stranger. You may work with someone for 2 or 3 years. So understand their business and really find their pain points and their struggles, but also share in their successes if they allow you to do that. And that's how you build the trust. That's how you sustain your client, and that's how underlined with good hard work, that's how you manage, or I manage, to build a relationship with the client.
Yeah, that's really good, because it's like at the end of the day, there is like honesty and being straightforward with each other, and that helps build up the long-term relationship.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Yeah.
Over the last few years, I think the way we consume media has changed. And I know like recently you have also started working on podcasts. So what inspired you to start the podcasts and all?
Yeah, you're being kind. You're painting me as a young starter with podcasts who's all enthusiastic. I've actually been doing it since about 2009.
Oh, wow.
So I'm long in the tooth with podcasts. I think 2009 was also when podcasting was in its infancy. And even the term podcast, we're talking 2 years after the iPhone was launched in 2007, that I started doing podcasts, and it was alien to most people. I mean, it's alien to a lot of corporations now, but it was so alien back then, Swamini. But this, in the same way that I saw working in print magazines that things were going online, I saw the same thing with online going audio. And I thought, here's another channel, here's another opportunity for content to move over to another channel and reach a new audience. So I think that was the main motivation for me. And I was working for foodbev.com at the time. I was editor-in-chief of foodbev.com. So I had the control in order to do that, to say, this is what I'd like to launch in a month. These are the episode plan. These are the people I want to talk to. And then you just go out and do it. And I did. I've done, gosh, it must be more than 300 podcast episodes now, many of which I'm on presenting or I've produced for others. And that was quite nice as well, Swamini, is getting other people involved and getting old hacks, old writers who only ever write, to get them to do interviews, to get them on video, to get them on the podcast, and to actually be the interviewer as well. That's kind of nice to see other people getting involved.
Yeah, that's really good, because I think with a lot of people are watching now YouTube videos for self-educating themselves, and podcast is also one of those things. Like when I'm cooking or something, I'll just turn on one of the podcasts, and it's really fun and informative. Do
you have any favorites?
After Hours by Harvard Business Review. So I like that they're talking about business, and also I've added the professors of Harvard Business School on my LinkedIn also. So I recently got one of their books. So it's nice to just know about people. And then the thing I like about their podcast is that they have difference of opinions, like each person individually. So in the same episode, I'll get to think about one thing from 2-3 different perspectives. So I quite like that.
That's so important, isn't it, as well, to have that debate. People say debate is a dying skill, because we're very tribal now. There has to be a right or a wrong in many arguments, which is a shame, I think. And that's why some of the best podcasts are still debates. You hear all sides of the coin and get to make your mind up as the listener. Yeah.
Do you have any favorites?
Oh gosh, I listen to too many. So many. So I listen to some for business, for work, as you do, for learning as well. I love to learn. But I also have my entertaining ones. I still love Desert Island Discs, but I like The Economist. I Diary of a CEO is a new one for me. I like the science podcast. I have a book club one. Sam Harris. Who else do I listen to? Michael Mosley. A lot of fintech ones, financial services, as you know.
Yeah,
I have to do a lot of homework on financial services. So I listen to Under the Hood by 11FS and gosh, there's so many. Yeah. Too many.
That's good. I'll look into some of those.
You should.
Yeah. So with podcasts, I think there is the element of constant learning. So how do you upskill yourself constantly?
Yeah. Again, it's putting in the hard work for yourself as well as your clients, is making sure you're still tip top, in good shape. You know what's going on. It's keeping yourself updated as much as you update your phone in a way. Why would you not update your phone so that it does all the latest things? So why would you not update yourself so that you can do all the latest things? And I think that's my approach. I think there's a bit of FOMO, that fear of missing out. So I like to keep up to date as much as possible, because I'm over 50, Swamini, and I guess some would say, lots of experience. They really know what they're talking about, except he's over 50. So does he know as much as the guy who's 20 something? Well, maybe I do and I don't, but I'm going to give myself a better chance if I'm staying as bang up to date as that 20 something year old. And so far it's working out.
Yeah. So do you watch YouTube videos or read news, or what kind of things do you do to constantly keep yourself?
To keep learning. Yeah. So yes, I'm a YouTube addict, but I also use Skillshare. I don't know if you know Skillshare. It's a fantastic platform. And I really enjoy that. You learn so much. It's very creative. So there's a lot of creative things on there. You're not necessarily going to stay up to date with news and things like that, but you're going to learn the skills that help you adapt to new software, how to use those pieces of software. So I'm on Skillshare quite a lot, so much so that I actually became a teacher on it as well. So I have 2 classes running on Skillshare at the moment. I just thought it was nice to give back as much as take.
I'll share the links to your classes. I can do that. Right?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great. So what, can you talk a little bit about your classes? Like what are the topics and everything?
Yeah, so I thought the first one, let's get the podcasting thing underway, because in my learning about podcasting over the many years, I've used many different things to get there. And I do pretty much everything on my iPad now. It's so quick. It's so powerful. I do the recording on there. I do the editing on there. So I thought, why not have a class? Why not start a course on Skillshare where I show people how to get a podcast going using their iPad? So that was my first one. And my latest one is falling back on my copywriting profession, which is how to write a press release. I know, sounds boring, doesn't it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I know, like, I've written press release in my previous job, so I know like how difficult or tricky it can be. So it's nice to learn it like professionally and step-by-step process if there is. I think that's a great bit.
That's really nice. That's so generous. It is a boring topic to many people, but you're right. There is a way of doing it. And I thought, maybe I can help here.
Yeah, that's great, Shaun. That's so great. So I have a final question for you. So if you were to convince a copywriter who is currently in a full-time job but wants to get into full-time freelancing, so what would you say? Because I know a lot of people are hesitant to do that, to leave the nest, I would say, or their comfort zones. So how do you convince them?
What's the harm in trying? I think there's getting over that fear. We all have it. Even the most confident of us say we don't have that fear, but we do. We fear failing, or we have imposter syndrome, or we're generally lazy, some of us. But I think some of that laziness comes from fear. So I would just say, just go for it. It may stick. Also, you can give it a go, and you can go back to full time. I think there's a thing where people think, right, I've got my business up and running now. I'm a company director. I've got to make this work. I mustn't fail. Because what do I do after it? Well, go back to full-time work. Go and work for someone else again and try again in a year, 2 years, 3 years. There's no finite deadline on how and when you should do these things. Just go for it.
Yeah.
I hope that's good advice. Yeah.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you so much, Shaun. And thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been lovely to see you again and to talk to you. And I've really loved listening to your other interviews as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll share all the links, especially to your LinkedIn, so that if someone wants to get in touch with you, they can do that using that.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Swamini.
Thank you so much, Shaun. Thank you.